Okay, we're now recording. That's cool with everybody. We're learning. This is just for our consumption. This is just for our learning. Okay. So I'm going to put up my meeting agreement. And oops, last slide. Feedback is make sure you're at your first slide. So as you guys know, I always try to start my meetings off with this agreement. Some people really get annoyed with me. So I think there's probably a fine balance, and I'm not striking that. But you know, I always take for granted that someone in my training doesn't know anything. You know, you got to start from zero, from the foundation. So that's why I try to go through it every time, even though most people feel like rolling their eyes at me. But we are the Manassas Park Education Association. Our vision is a great public school for every student. We are affiliated with the Virginia Education Association and the National Education Association, and together we're the largest union in the country with about 3 million members. Our mission is to advocate for education professionals and to unite our members to fulfill the promise of public education. Our theory of change, or how we do things, kind of sets us apart from other organizations that support public education, right? There's parents groups that support public education, there's principals groups, but we have a different theory of change. And that is that we take collective action. We accomplish our mission by bringing school employees together, and we draw on their skills, passions, talents to make the world a better place. So for the next 45 minutes or so, I want to ask folks to maintain confidentiality about what is said here. I'm going to rely on you all to participate and support me as my effort as a trainer and your own learning. Let's try to stick with our timeline. That means if something is a little bit off topic, then let's put it in the parking lot, return to it another time. Stay with me, don't be checked out. One way to do that is to speak your truth, speak what's in your heart, take some risks. You know, sometimes that's going to get uncomfortable. That's a good sign. Agree to disagree, and let's leave united and carry the work forward. Here's the new slide, a meeting agreement for adult learning. We all have to work together to make the training successful. You take out as much as you put in. I ask you to take risks. If you feel uncomfortable, then we're doing something right. Speak up when you need to. We can't win if we don't play, so let's be playful and have fun. Now, some of those seem redundant. We'll trim that later. So can we agree to work like that for the next 45 minutes or so? Any amendments, changes, objections?
I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Fantastic. I'm going to pop up on the screen my agenda for this meeting for a quick review. And I sent this to Justin. We can email it to you, Martha, later as a model. So the purpose of this training is to help folks learn how to talk about the Manassas Park Education Association and to get ready to recruit new members. The outcome, the thing that you're going to walk away with, I hope at the end of this session, is something like a draft script, something you can practice and something you can use when you actually go to the new employee orientation. I want you to leave feeling more confident at the end of this training than you did at the beginning on how to talk about the Education Association with clarity and some just more confidence. And I count on you all, my participants, to be engaged, stay engaged, and help us all get through that. So I'm going to turn to you all now to learn a little bit about you. So we do actually know each other, but I was going to just kind of warm up the room a little bit by asking you to apply for a new job. Snow White, one of her elves, quit, so there's a new position open. If you were going to apply or pitch Snow White on why you should be the 7th elf, are they elves, dwarves? I don't know. What would your elf name be? And tell me why you would choose that. So I'll go first. I want to apply to be the new elf, Nappy, because if I have one superpower, it's I could take a nap almost anywhere, any time of the day, and I can actually tell my brain how long I need to nap, and I can fall asleep for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and my body will wake itself up. That's a great skill to have. So I would like to apply to be nappy.
All right. I would like to be. I think they're dwarves. Sort of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
I will be Silly the dwarf. Because I'm a goofball at heart. I love to make people laugh. And I think I'm a joy to be around. So I think that all is silly. I'm a little bit irreverent. So I think that works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Martha.
I want to be smiley, because I want to bring smile to people's face with my smile, and hope to be contagious.
That's great. Those are all good qualities to have. It's going to be heavy competition to be the next dwarf. So thank you for sharing that. In terms of what we're going to go through later, for the rest of the training, is we're going to talk about what is a union and break it down to its anatomical components, right? We're going to talk about just like what makes organizations, unions in particular, successful at new employee orientation recruitment. We've got some research on that. We're not going to dig too much into it, but it's going to kind of be floating there in the background for your reference. We're going to talk a little bit, some basic rules about successful communication. That's going to help us frame how we talk about the union. And there's some references, a short video, about 15-minute video that I'm going to direct you to watch after the training by Simon Sinek. A lot of people are familiar with it. And then we're going to actually spend about 7 minutes writing about ourselves, about our values, our beliefs, about the union. And then we're going to put that together in that little script. And we're going to come back together and try it out together. And that should get us through the training. Probably seems like a bit much, actually, upon reflection. But okay, so I'm going to stop the share, and we're going to talk about a union. So and just going back to the meta, so there I gave some base elements of the description of what is a union in the beginning. If anyone who's paying attention, you'll start to notice that in this part. But there's no wrong answers. Actually, as a trainer, there's just kind of like people wrestling with an idea. So you want to encourage that. So let's talk about what is a union, and let's talk about the concept, right? What is a union? Anybody want to jump in and tell me what comes to mind?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So to me, a union is a reaction to, and almost the inverse of, the typical corporate structure that you normally see. That kind of, in our general lives, we talk about having freedom, and in terms of voting we do, but in terms of our workplace, we live in very hierarchical societies. Your boss gets to tell you what to do, fire you whenever they want, simply because of their job title. I never really have liked that very much. I respect each individual person based on their own personal morals and how they behave, not on what their title is. So to me, a union is kind of the counter to that, right? A union says, hey, the boss actually isn't the most important person at any sort of work site. It's actually the people who do this stuff, right? And whether that's at a factory or whether it's at a school, like, it's the people who do the nuts and bolts groundwork that create the real value. And because of that, I feel like they should have a real say, the biggest say, in the way that their workplace functions, both because they have the ground level expertise and because they're the ones who do the actual work. I have a feeling, I like my bosses, but I have a feeling if my bosses vanished tomorrow, we could still manage to teach children. On the other hand, if all of the teachers and the janitors and bus drivers vanished one day and it was just the principal and the superintendent, I doubt very much they'd be able to do their job. So for that reason, I think we deserve, at the very least, an equal say, and probably the biggest say, in terms of what we do. And a union is a way for us to organize and collectivize, to put our voices together, so that when we do come to our administration, to our bosses, with issues about how our job is done and how we're compensated for it and all of the surrounding issues that go into our job, that we have the very least an equal voice. And frankly, we should have the biggest voice because we're the biggest group of people. So the union is what helps us do that functionally.
That's great. That's awesome. Martha, do you have anything what are some of your ideas about what is a union?
When I think of union, I think about the marriage, when both husband and wife come together in one union. So I think together as, in the workplace, that we all come together to find a common cause, to find a commonality that we can achieve things together and to express our rights. And also a union is also a place where, it's like, in a way, protecting our rights, and that we're fighting fighting with each other, for each other, just to coexist.
That's great. Those are great examples, and they are there's some fundamental things in there that you both raise that I think really help us describe what a union is, right? So we know recently in the last month, somebody in the school district said, "You guys aren't a union; you're an association." But under the law, there's no legal definition of what a union is, right? We're a labor organization. And in a technical sense, the boring technical and not important sense, unions have some tools that they can use. In some places that's collective bargaining, in some places the strike, some places that's banned, right? Those are tools. Those do not describe the association itself. What Martha raised, like in a marriage, two people united under the common commitment to each other to protect one another and to achieve things. And that is the basic framework of a labor union, is that we're united by some principles and shared goals that we want to achieve in the world. And as Justin pointed out, we are people that are have some skills to bring to it, some things that they want to put into the life of the organization to build its power so that we can co-equal the influence of an employer or a corporation or a CEO or a supervisor or whatever, right? So our collective voices, passions, and skills are what are the basis of the power of the union and what the union actually is, right? So often you'll hear union members say, well, the union this or the union that. It's important to always remind folks, like, we are the union. You are the union, right? Don't other the union. Your UNISERV director is not the union. Dr. Fetterman in Richmond is not the union any more than the member who's paying, the casual member that's paying $15 a paycheck. They're as much the union as any of us. And we ask them to own that, right? So if the union's not functioning, then it's your right to say it's not functioning, but it's also your responsibility to pitch in and make it function. So without that, it just wouldn't work. So looking back at my questions here, and we've already kind of pulled a lot of this out. What do unions do, and why do people join them? What do unions do, and why do people join them?
So that's not a rhetorical question. You're asking that, huh?
Yes.
So what do unions do? Unions use the collective strength and the accumulated skills of their members to advocate for better working conditions and better social conditions in their workplace and in their community. That's basically what they do.
Yeah. Awesome. So can you think of any examples, Martha?
Question?
What do they do, and why would you join one? Maybe the question is, why did you personally join?
Martha, do you want to talk about what a union does first, and then we can both talk about why we joined?
I like what you said about the union to collect strength and to advocate, social justice and within the community. And also, a union should be a place where people can find a voice, to, as what Fabricio said, to be able to take action and to able to be responsible for our action and just to do it, not just be stagnant about it. And the reason why that I joined is because, I want to help others who don't have a voice. Because in the union, we do have resources, we do have organizations that can help. And then the voice that people are, not is afraid to speak up we can help them, to advocate and to lead them into the right place where they can, express their issues or express their, concerns and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I would also say that there's nothing more natural than organisms coming together for mutual protection and mutual betterment, right? Right. Zebra gather together in herds because they're more protected from lions if they're together, right? Birds do the same thing, right? Bees don't hang out by themselves as one individual bee and try to make it. They're all together as a hive, and the hive is much, much better off than an individual bee is. Ants work together the same way. So we see examples of this in nature, and we also see examples of it in human societies, right? I love history. And one of the things that always happens in history is when there's a big external threat, people have to come together to meet that threat. Whether that was the ancient Greeks, who were all individual peoples who came together to defend themselves against Persia, or whether it was the Allies coming together in World War II to fight Nazis. Whenever there's an existential threat, it always pays to come together with people who share your common cause and work together. You're always going to be stronger. What was it? There's a famous movie called Ron, which is based on King Lear. And at the very beginning, he does the example where he takes one arrow and he gives one arrow to each of his sons. And he says, break the arrow in half. And each son breaks the arrow in half fairly easily. And then he takes 3 arrows and he hands each of them 3 arrows and says, now break these. Much harder, in fact, impossible for them to break. So his lesson is that the 3 of you together will be unbreakable, but if you all separate, you can each be broken individually. So rather than as employees be broken individually, we've chosen to come together and join our strengths together. And I think the administration and the people who try to take away, whittle at our rights are going to find us completely unbreakable if we work together.
Love it. And one last question on this part of the exercise. Can you think of something that your union or any union has accomplished recently that really inspired you, that stands out in your memory?
Recently, my sister, she is the principal for Fairfax, and she joined the principal union for principals, and they were going to give them raise, but then they're going to lower their steps. So the principal gathered together and they have a petition and they fought hard and to use the collective bargaining. So they were able now to not just only give them the raise, but give them a step up and not put it step down. So when my sister told me that was very inspiring, that within her own, principal union, they were very powerful enough that, the HR backed down.
Fantastic. That's a great example.
I've been inspired recently, not including the work that we've done, but this is other people entirely. I was really inspired by the workers in Alabama, the Amazon workers in Alabama who came together and are still trying to unionize their workplace. The reason I'm so impressed is because I lived in Alabama for several years. And I'll be honest, if I were thinking about places that were going to unionize, Alabama would be very low on my list in terms of people's personal beliefs. But I think people across political spectrums are now seeing, they're seeing more clearly the way that the corporate structures are not necessarily beneficial to them as ground level workers. And B, they're seeing the value in coming together to demand things like fair wages, safe workplaces, homes and areas that they can come back to and be proud of after they're done doing their 40 hours or however many it is. So to me, that's very inspiring. And it shows me that this isn't just us on one little level, on one little corner of the world doing this. There's people all over the country and all over the world right now who are fighting for the exact same thing. And so I like to draw strength from thinking about how there's so many other people in the world who believe the same way we do and who are working in their own corner of the world to make the world a better place for all of us. So that inspires me.
That's fantastic. Thanks for putting in all great examples. Yeah, those are great examples. So, and they all show how people coming together, putting those skills in, manifesting their passion as a way to build power. Earlier in the summer, I reached out to you, Martha, about the interfaith dialogue, because that's also another thing that informs who we are, right? And that's a value. That's kind of where people come together with their shared values to manifest their values out in the world. And a union, again, they're united, Christians or people of faith of all stripes are united in their view of the world, and they come together hopefully to do good things in the world. And I think a union is no different. It's just something that goes by a different name, right? In Virginia, and actually all across the country now, people cannot be compelled to join a union or pay any amount of union dues to a union. There used to be states where they can make you at least pay what it costs to represent you and get you a contract. But even that has gone out the door. So union membership is entirely voluntary. So we talked about why do people join a union. You both held up why you yourself joined the union. And it's important to point out that the commonality between both of your stories is that you were inspired to join, right? You found a way to manifest what you wanted to see in the world through the union. The best on-ramp for the people that haven't joined yet is being able to describe to them why the association connected with your values and gave you an opportunity to bring about that change in the world that you wanted to see. That's the most convincing, the most powerful tool you have in your toolbox to talk with somebody about why they should join the union, right?
Can I actually add to that real briefly?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I would say that the avenue to onboarding somebody else is not necessarily, you describe your reasons, but you get them to describe what they want to see changed in the world, how they want the world to be better. And then you can explain to them, you can explain to them how our goals are aligned and how working together makes it, the sum greater than its parts. If I'm advocating by myself and you're advocating by yourself, when we come together, that doesn't equal 2, that equals 4, right? That's a force multiplier when we come together. So that's the addendum I would have to that, is that us advocating by, find the common ground and then explain to them why us working together to achieve that is far more powerful than us working individually, or more to the point, feeling like working individually is pointless and just accepting things as the way they are, even if they're really shitty.
That's a great example. And what I want to point out, just like jumping on that or springboarding on that. So, I want to point out like what we're talking about, maybe not with the two of you, because we've done this, we've played with this a little bit, but what we're really talking about is very, I wouldn't call it weird, but it's unusual. It's uncommon, right? And I think we know that the union VEA writ large has fallen back for decades on talking about why you should don't join the union, is because guess what? Someday you might get in trouble and we have a lawyer for you. If you get in trouble and someone tries to sue you, we've got insurance, right? It's a bargain proposition. People feel very comfortable with that. It doesn't ruffle any feathers. It's very impersonal, right? And as the numbers will bear out, it isn't very effective either, right? What you all are engaging in now is talking about like what you care about. Now, I'm not trying to like frighten you from doing this, but when we talk with people that aren't in it yet, it's really your strongest selling point is talking about what you believe and how you found a home for that belief in the organization. And as Justin pointed out, asking them, what do you care about? How do you want to see the world, right? And that's unusual because it's also asking them to put something in, make a commitment to you in a way, take a risk and talk about something that's in their heart, not about what's in their wallet, right? Instead of, we're trying to inspire them and not manipulate them, right? Because I think if we're just trying to manipulate them, like someday you might get in trouble and you'll need a lawyer, someone can sell them a lawyer cheaper than we can. There will be always somebody, if that's all they have to do is send a check every month and cross your fingers that nothing goes wrong, somebody's going to provide that much cheaper than us. So what we're actually trying to provide for people is a collective venue toward empowerment. That means we have to provide collective experiences, right? And they have to come and be a part of the organization and the community. But a community, as Martha pointed out, or a union, a unity between people has to be based on something. And our unity is based on our collective belief that the people that work in the school should have more of a say. They're the experts and the best advocates for students and for employees. So it's a little unusual to talk with people like that in public, but it's the most compelling way. So
Yeah.
Anybody else want to put in before we move it?
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, to kind of riff off of what you were talking about. It seems to me that there's a difference between the passive union and the active union, right? And the value proposition for the passive union is, yeah, if something else, it's almost a reactionary. If something else happens to you, then the union will step in, right? And that's kind of the function that the union has served. And I think our union in particular is like, okay, if one of our members has a problem and they come to us, then we'll address it, right? That's passive. That's me, the spider waiting in my web for something to come to me, right? What I've been propositioning and the change I'm trying to make is from a passive union to an active union, right? The difference being that we're not waiting for people to come to us with their issues. We're going forward and we're saying this is what we're advocating for and this is what we're working towards. And then we're asking people to join that active union. We're asking you to participate in that. We're asking people to lend their strength, their talents, their time, their skills, their passion to ours in order to achieve our common goals. So, like in the step we're in right now, what we're doing is we're all coming together and we're all describing our goals to each other and figuring out which goals we have in common. And those are the ones we'll go fight for together, but we're going to do it actively. We're not going to sit and wait until the problems come to us. We already know what the problems are. They're the same problems that every person who's been had a boss since time immemorial has had, right? Which is functionally, they want us to do more than we can do for less than we can afford to. And, we want to have meaningful, fulfilling work that we can do. And then once that's done, we want to be able to set it aside and do all of the things that God gifted us with to enjoy creation, enjoy our families and enjoy our communities. Right. So that's the tension we're in. Our bosses would like it if all we did was wake up, put our nose to the grindstone until we one day keeled over. We would like to do less of that and more of the things that we enjoy in life. So that's what we're advocating for. But, that's a hyper simplistic version of what we're doing because the world is more complicated than that. But functionally, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get better working conditions. We're trying to have better conditions outside of our work lives. And our bosses are trying to get us to have less life outside of work and to do it for less benefits outside of work.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move past the jobs of justice study, but I'll quickly reference it just because we can see my training is way too long as usual. But I'm gonna quickly pop this on the screen so you can see it, and I'll share it with you all later, and you can read it yourself. I encourage you to read the whole study, but it's summarized in the executive summary. And a couple things I want to point out. So they say this isn't just for educators; it's for all new employee orientations. They did a research on it and found some things that make unions more successful than others, right? So new employee orientation are really essential because it's like we're talking about the next generation of union members, next generation of workers, right? Or of staff. So it's important to get in there, get there early. So the extended length of orientation. So I think this is in Manassas. So I point out for all my locals, a lot of the time the superintendent and the school board pretends they are partners with the union, right? And it's this arrangement where if you be quiet, then supposedly we get something out of it. I don't know what that thing is. in the very least, we should have a seat at the table to do the thing that is core to what we exist to do, which is recruit more members, right? So if they don't have they're not giving us some extended amount of time with new employees, quit pretending it's a partnership, right? But that's something we could work on toward the future. In terms of, things that we should keep our eyes on. So the biggest takeaway from this study is you're more successful if you are creating formalized socialization. That means we are creating a collective experience, which is hard to do in an NEO, right? NEO is kind of casting the net, getting some contact information, maybe some new members. So I would hold that for our purposes, the most important thing are the next steps, the follow-up, right? So we're doing training now on how to talk about the association, which means going out, putting our banner on the table, but also wearing our heart on our sleeve and saying, this is why I'm in the union. Here's what I care about. What do you care about? We should join together. That's going to make you more successful. And then the next steps are the follow-up. Where can we create the collective experience? Where can we continue? What opportunities do we have to continue to talk about values and also ask them to share? And then also finally, create some collective opportunities. So maybe in a month or 6 weeks, we're following up with them, inviting them to something, doing that union brother and sister thing one more time. And I'll share this out with you after the training. So take a look at that. We got some more planning to do, and this is not our be all end all in this one training. But those were some key takeaways. For how to talk about the union, there's a formalized structure that I think is very helpful. I referenced the Simon Sinek video, so I'll send the link to that. I think it's very instructive. I use that model all the time. And I kind of put some of that formalized structure into our worksheet, which I think I should probably just email to you all now. So there's a worksheet that helps you map your values, kind of like we did in the beginning, why you joined the union. Some of those questions we repeated again, because I think for most adults, you got to hear things a couple times, right? You got to see it, you got to hear it, you got to do it, you got to practice it, and then it really starts to set in. So that's why I'm kind of hitting the same points 3 and 4 different times from different angles through a training. But I'll email you both the agenda, and the second page is, actually, Justin, you already got it. I'll just email it to you, Martha. The second page is the worksheet. And the worksheet would take people through mapping the values, some accomplishments, and how to kind of write a short script, right? So that's what we would do for maybe the last, actually, I should have given myself more time, at least 20 minutes. Feedback to myself. Here it comes at you now. Martha, once you get that and you have it open, could you let us know? If you even have a laptop, I know you're on your phone, so if we had to, I could go through it. I could put it on the screen. Ideally, I think this works best if you could do breakouts, So I actually don't think this has to be restricted to reps. It could be any activist, any union activist that wants to get involved. This is kind of something that you could train them in. And it's a little more dynamic if we have enough people who could do a couple breakouts, and they can try it with each other, and people that feel very confident come back in the room, and a couple people perform it for the room, right? So people are seeing the model. They actually heard all the elements of the model a couple times. They try it themselves, they practice it with each other, and then they roll it out on the big stage. So that said, we have 10 minutes, which is maybe enough time for you guys to do some of the elements of it. So what if we give you to 11:55 to do a little thinking? I know that's very tight, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just give it an attempt. Think through some of the worksheet, write a summary, and let's hear a pitch for the last 5 minutes. Is that cool?
That works. Give me a minute here. I'll pull this up.
So when we pitch, because I haven't done any sales, but what is there like a time limit when you talk to a person? Especially, I know you don't want to delve into specifics, but well, from my standpoint, when sharing, the gospel with people about your faith, it's usually you share your testimony. So is that similar to when you want to inspire people, is through your own testimony about, why you're joining the union? Is that like a pitch or I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, Martha. You imagine NTO, or if you're at the door, if you were trying to talk with folks about the, where you worship, you're going to get 30 seconds, right?
Okay.
So that's not all of your testimony, but you're trying to put enough things that are like rich enough in that 30-second, the elevator pitch to pique their interest. And like, if you put the values forward and you say, well, I think people should be treated fairly at work. If they're not with you on that, they're going to close the door, right? But if they're even a little bit interested in that, they're going to at least give you a contact information to follow up later. They're going to stop and listen to the testimony, but you have to kind of get them. You got to find your people first. And that's like, I'm going to put my values out there. I'm going to tell you what I care about. I'm going to ask you what you care about. We should be together. Basic elements, right?
Martha, in terms of like the nuts and bolts of like writing a pitch is, you basically want to have one pitch, but you kind of want to break it down into like, let's use your faith as an example, right? Let's say you had 3 seconds to convert a heathen. 3 seconds is all the time in the world you're ever going to get to speak with this person. What would you say in those 3 seconds to them, right? You're not going to be able to convey everything, right? But that's like, what is the very heart of what you're trying to get at? Just throw it out there on the wall, right? You got 3 seconds, spaghetti on the wall. What are you saying to that person, right? And that's your first sentence of the pitch, right? And if all you ever get to say is those 3 seconds, you can leave saying, hey, I did my best. From there, you can start to add on to that pitch. What if instead of 3 seconds, you had 30 seconds? What are the things that you're missing that you would add in there? Or how would you be a little bit more specific about your one big point? What's 1 or 2 examples of your big point, right? And then you have like the 5 minute, like, okay, you don't have 3 seconds, you don't have 30 seconds. Let's say you actually get a good, maybe 3 minutes, right? To just speak uninterrupted about your faith and why you believe so hard and why you believe other people should believe the way you do, right? So you have your one little blurb at top. That's your 3 seconds. That's the heart of what you're saying. You got, maybe 10 seconds. You expound upon that just a little bit, or you say, you blurt out what you believe and you give a little call to action. I think you should do that as well. And then, so expand from there. And so that's where the thought comes in. And that's what's a little bit hard to do, is to say, what is at the core of my belief, right? That takes a lot of introspection. But hopefully that'll help focus it, right? Because, this Thursday, there's going to be 60 people there, and we're going to have about an hour, right? If you divide that time equally, that's only 1 minute with each person, right? And we're not going to get that, right? We're not going to get to speak to everybody. But, at the maximum, even if they did make everybody line up and say, you have to speak with the union person, we would get exactly 1 minute with them. So whatever you're going to say, make sure it don't last more than a minute. Because if you got a 3-minute pitch, it's not going to work, right? Yeah. And ideally, you should have something between 3 and 10 seconds that, if you want to write it down, practice it in front of a mirror, just say, hey, I'm Martha. I'm with the union. I joined because of X. I think, if that's what you believe too, we'd love to have you. Boom, done. You know, the other thing is don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know, hopefully that's useful advice. But if you look at Fabrizio's email, you know, the very first question that is asked is, what do you believe is a person, right? What's that core belief, you know, related to the union? You know, I put in here, the first thing that came to is just the first thing that came to my head, right? I believe that all men are created equal and endowed by the Creator with the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Pretty
Right?
good. Mm-hmm.
That's my 3-second pitch. I believe everybody's created equal, and I think a union is a way for us to flex our equality, you know, in an unequal world. All right, there you go. 3 seconds.
Very good.
You know, you know, I could ramble on for 10 minutes about it, but you know, nice and tight, something like that. And then, you know, the next question, name 1 or 2 values that guide you as a person. Again, it's an introspective question to try to get you at the heart of what your beliefs are, so that you can explain them concisely to people. Because I think too, when you're trying to be nice and concise, you're also speaking in generalities that everybody can agree with, right? Like your faith and like family and things like these are things that everybody shares in common, even from different cultures, right? Nobody's arguing with, you know, not very few people are going to argue with like, yeah, I'm here to protect my family, right? Or I want to feed my family. You know, these are core values that everybody has. So think about those core values.
That's right. Yeah, and I think starting from the core values, you know, is really what should highlight to people that the union is not, you know, the kind of consistent complaint we get is we don't like the candidates you all support.
Yeah.
But we are a nonpartisan organization, right? If you believe that people should have a voice at work and be treated fairly, we're the home for you, right? Everything else we can figure out. Does it fulfill our values and our vision for the world? And there's a lot of movement underneath that umbrella.
Yeah. You know, interestingly enough, this is kind of an aside, but yesterday I had I made a connection a few months ago with some union members down in Chesapeake, and one of them reached out to me and said, hey, because this was back when I was talking about the bus issues, said, hey, we've been trying to get bus drivers and the union been having trouble. You're a bus driver, can you help us? Sure. Months go by, I finally get an email. They're like, hey, sorry, been busy, can you still help us? Sure. So we had that meeting yesterday. And I was telling them about, you know, we created the Slack channel and everything, what we were going through. And they asked the question, well, like, how do you ensure that everything you say on there is kept private? You know, and my initial knee-jerk reaction was to say, listen, we base what we're doing in our moral values, and we don't care who knows, right? In fact, it's one of our core tenets that we're as public as possible with our views, as long as we're being honest with ourselves and everybody, and as long as we're standing on our moral principles, then who cares? Who knows, right? I want everybody to know. In fact, the more people that know what we're standing on, the better, right? If anything, I'd say our number one obstacle is not our morals, it's communicating them out to other people so that they know, right? Like, you know, I know, Martha, we've talked about this before, about how few people in the school even know that a union exists or knows that the MPEA is a union, right? So good. I want the administrators talking about what we're doing. I want them thinking about us. You know, I want to live rent free in their heads. You know, so that again, but that, like, them asking that question really helped me crystallize that thought. I know it's something I've kind of expressed in ways before when they said, well, how do you keep things private? I was like, no. Being private and behind the scenes, everything, that's the tools of the enemy, right? They're the ones who want to keep everything quiet. They want to keep all the issues in the school hush hush, so they can, for them, it's much easier to just pretend that things are going well than to actually do the work of making sure things are going well. So they want to keep things tamped down. We're quite the opposite. We're always trying to get that information out into the public. But as long as we're being honest, and as long as we're standing on you know, timeless moral principle, you know, what do they got against us? Nothing.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
but yeah,
That's a great point. And I think that's right. We got to fly that flag because that's how the people that share those values can find us, right?
Yeah.
The most important, we're always talking about membership in the union, and of course, membership is a key indicator of our strength. But you all as leaders really need to only worry about your apostles, as I call them, the people that are going to carry the word forward, if you will, right? And the way you find the apostles is being able to make sure everybody knows what you stand for, right? Martha, do you want to give it a try after doing some work?
Okay, well, this is my pitch, so, okay, here it goes. Hi, I'm Martha. I'm a representative, for our school district union. I believe our union can give your voice to share your core values. What is your core value? And let them talk, blah, blah, blah. And well, if you believe those core value can make a difference, consider joining our union. That's it.
That's great. That's great. No, I think so. Yeah, I think that those are the absolute base elements of what you need to do. And I think if I could give some feedback, so I know I like that you're leading with your core values. I feel like they flew by kind of fast, and I think and that's how I get when I try to talk about my core values too. That's very it's uncommon, so it's a little uncomfortable. But maybe just like slow down and say, I believe, say your belief and say that's why. And I think the next step is like, using myself as an example, I believe that all educators should be treated with respect and dignity, as I said in my sample. Because of that, I united with other people that are trying to get that, and that's why I'm in the union. So like slow that piece down a little bit so that they can feel like you're taking a risk. And then I love how you ask them to reciprocate. That's like a really strong element. And I think the hardest part after asking them to reciprocate or to put something in is for people. And I know that you're giving a quick pitch, but if you're going to go there, being silent and letting them respond, almost everybody will. Almost everybody will say something. And like Justin pointed out, getting them to talk to you about their beliefs, it's basically they've taken one step in the door at that point, right? So I think that's really, really great example. Good job. Cheers to you. Okay, well, we are at an hour. We got off to a little bit of a slow start. So if you guys would entertain or you want to try, Justin, if you want to try one out, if you guys want to hang for a few more minutes, I'd be glad to stick around.
I mean, I'm good right now. I can definitely, I was talking, I didn't really think of my particular elevator pitch. Which, let's see. How would I say it? I would have to write it down. I'll have to write it down and come
No
up with
problem.
something. That's my process. Here's what I'll do for y'all is I'll write it down and I'll share it with you in the next couple minutes because it'll foment in my head into a nice sentence and I'll be like, that's the one. And then I'll shoot it off to you guys. But I think throughout earlier in the video, what I really need to do is go back in the video and listen to what I was saying and just write that down.
That's fine. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And just also like some thinking toward the future in terms of, so we're going to do the NTO, you guys are going to do the NTO, you're going to talk with some people. The follow-up, that might be a good place to put it. I know Justin, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about possibly doing a video follow-up that you can have your reps distribute. So that's a really good place to try out that model. And then also, I encourage you guys to think a little bit ahead down the road, a month, 6 weeks after NTO. What can we do to bring people together and do that follow-up and ask them to become a part of it, right? Not just join, like we definitely want you to join, but now we want you to be in it, right? So create some kind of collective experience for people, whether it's, having pizza or getting another orientation or whatever, right? Doing a survey or listening to or something like that. So those are the next follow-up steps, as you'll see in the Jobs with Justice report. So we could talk about that another time. But that said, been an hour. I appreciate you guys. If you would tell, if you give me some feedback now about what you thought worked well with the training, and what could be done better. I'd appreciate it.
I would probably, if I was going to give some feedback, I would probably treat the training similar to the way that we treat our statement of values, right? Imagine you only get a 3-second training. What are you going to communicate with me in those 3 seconds? And put that right at the front. Lead with that. And then the rest of the training is just expounding on that core principle.
That's great.
I also like the way you personally walk me through to practice and have me thinking about what I need to do or say. And I took lots of notes, and so it really helps me because I'm more visual. So help me more to know how to say and to get more clarity in how to represent and to share with others.
Thank you. I appreciate you both as participants. You've always been great about jumping in and being playful, just doing the work, not being too afraid to just try it out. So thank you for that. I'm really excited for the work we're going to do this year. And, I think it's going to be fantastic. It's really going to change things.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time today, Fabricio. I appreciate it. And thank you for recording this. I'd like to post it up in our Slack channel for the others who weren't able to attend today. I know it's a weird time to be doing meetings. Everybody's still on summer vacation, everything, but I think this is really useful. I mean, if we can get everybody together, maybe even Fabricio, you don't have to be involved if you're busy, but maybe Martha, you and me can lead kind of another similar training for other people who are in. Now that we know how to do it, we'll do some practice, and then we can be the apostles and go out there and spread it to some of our other union members. Cause I know there's ones who wanted to attend and were unable to today.